Saturday, January 17th, 2009, Niagara Falls, New York. The sun is dropping over this picturesque city, the self-proclaimed honeymoon capital of the world. But shortly after 5 p.m., emergency dispatchers receive a call from an apartment on the north end of town.
A man named Robert Johnson found his wife apparently dead on the kitchen floor of their apartment.
An officer is only blocks away when the call goes out from dispatch. He arrives within minutes, finds the front door open, and Robert Johnson cradling his wife in agony.
So what happened?
I don't know.
He was crying out to the police officers about the horrible discovery he just made. There was blood all over the floor.
She was stabbed multiple times.
In fact, some of the weapons used in the attack are still lodged in her body.
There were 2 knife blades broken off along the side of the torso.
I'm gonna need you to go ahead and stand up. So I need to clear. I need you to go ahead and stand up.
Within moments, other officers and paramedics arrive on the scene.
He was reacting so emotionally to having found his wife. Robert Johnson had to be pulled away from the body.
As Robert is dragged away, EMTs rush in to check Kenya's vitals, but there's nothing they can do.
They quickly pronounced Kenya Johnson dead at the scene.
Even for seasoned detectives, this homicide is beyond the pale.
The crime scene was gruesome. Her head was cut very severely to the point that it was almost a decapitation.
But as officers attempt to console a shell-shocked Robert Johnson, nobody can imagine how this 32-year-old wife and mother fell victim to such a chilling crime. Kenya Bashana Thornton, or Kenya as she was known, grew up in Niagara Falls, the second of 4 children.
Kenya, she was the quiet one. She was real reserved, and she was a homebody.
She didn't party, she didn't drink, she didn't smoke, really didn't go out to clubs.
But as Kenya grew up, this good girl discovered she had a weakness for bad boys.
She liked street guys that were like in the fast lane. Someone total opposite of who she was is what she attracted.
Kenya's first love definitely fit the bill, and at 23, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Naomi. Although the relationship didn't last, Kenya worshipped her daughter.
Kenya was excited. She was happy to be having her first child.
In 2000, she landed a good job at a local call center.
Kenya made actually pretty good money there, doing customer service calls and whatnot.
While working at the call center, Kenya met a handsome, straight-laced coworker by the name of Robert Johnson.
How you doing today?
I'm good. You?
I'm all right. How was work?
It was good. I can't complain.
Though Robert wasn't cut from the brash, street tough cloth that Kenya found so attractive, he made it abundantly clear that he wanted to be more than just friends.
He sent her flowers at work. Robert would send her candy.
You'll be available around Saturday night?
Yeah, I'm free Saturday night.
You sure?
Yes!
Kenya was excited.
Every time she see him, she told me she get butterflies in her stomach. She hasn't felt this way in so long. Like he'd kiss her, she just would float.
It wasn't just the way Robert treated Kenya that made her feel special. It was the way he treated her daughter, Naomi, too.
He was very accepting of her daughter that she already had. Robert loved her daughter just like he loved his own daughter.
Pretty soon, Robert and Kenya were inseparable. So much so that even when Kenya hit the town without Robert, she didn't stay out long.
We all got together and we went out. She left and went on her date with Robert. When you leave your girlfriends to go with a guy, then you're into the guy.
A couple months later, Kenya announced she was pregnant with Robert's child.
We told her, if you had to stay with us, you wouldn't be heading this way, but it was a good thing for her.
By the winter of 2004, Kenya and Robert were raising 2 beautiful young daughters.
Kenya was so happy. She was such a good mother. Robert was just as happy. He was a very good father. He was very tender. He helped Kenya.
A few weeks later, the couple officially tied the knot.
I'm home. Daddy! Hey!
So that made me happy because I had someone who I knew was going to be taking care of Kenya, my niece, and so it was exciting to see the young love that they both had for one another.
The couple decided Kenya would stay home for a while to be with the children. And as they settled into their new apartment, Robert and Kenya seemed to be living a life of pure bliss.
She was pretty much at home all the time at that point, and he was at work all day. She was just so happy. I never saw Kenya happy like that.
But Kenya had no intention of remaining a stay-at-home mom forever. In 2007, she enrolled at Bryant and Stratton College in nearby Buffalo.
She was going to school to be a medical assistant. She loved it. Kenya was doing great. Dean's List, great grades, awesome grades.
As for Robert, he was also working hard. He'd recently taken a new job as a sales rep with a local cable company, which required him to log a lot of time on the road, which soon put a strain on their marriage.
So now the partnership with them, with the kids, and the workload and whatnot was kind of a little shaky then.
Things started looking up again in the fall of 2008, when Robert came home with some exciting news.
Sit down, I got a surprise for you.
No, I hate surprises.
You don't like this.
He told Kenya that there was an opportunity to move to Atlanta and get a job there.
According to Robert, the job would be better pay with better hours.
It's caused us forced to relocate to Atlanta.
Shut up.
Yeah, so that means we got to move to Atlanta.
To her friends, Kenya seemed ecstatic.
Told me they were moving. She was excited. I was happy for her. If it was going to work out and they were going to move away, then that was good.
A loving marriage, 2 beautiful children, a future full of promise. It seemed Robert and Kenya were well on the road to a long and happy life together.
Kenya!
Which made the grisly scene inside their home the night of January 17th all the more unthinkable.
People like a Kenya don't get murdered.
She would never do anything to hurt anybody. Who would do something to her like that?
If detectives are going to answer that question, they will need to unlock a vault filled with secrets. Secrets that would reveal this wasn't the first time a knife-wielding attacker had stormed into the Johnsons' home. Robert and Kenya Johnson began as co-workers and ended up as husband and wife. With 2 beautiful children and blossoming careers, their life seemed complete.
She told me, Robert, he just makes me feel like nobody ever made me feel before. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you. You finally found happiness.
But on January 17th, 2009, that happiness was torn asunder when Robert came home to find Kenya dead on the kitchen floor, her body riddled with stab wounds.
It was shocking. It was like unbelievable.
As first responders attempt to console a seemingly devastated Robert, investigators try to piece together what happened.
They counted 49 stab wounds in the body. Her throat had been cut basically from ear to ear. The police discovered that there were 3 knife blades stuck in the body of Kenya Johnson. And these knife blades had the handles broken off them, and broken knife handles were found at the scene.
As CSIs collect the knives and other physical evidence, news of this horrible tragedy spreads to the family.
It was devastating. I've never experienced that type of feeling or emotion that I experienced that day.
It was still like, this is not true. Somebody's gonna call us back and tell us that this is a terrible joke.
I'm trying to think who in the world would do something like this to this person.
It's the same question police are asking. They start by questioning the man who called 911, Kenya's beloved husband.
My name is Robert Johnson.
Robert, what happened today?
Went to the barbershop.
He explains that the couple was at home most of the day, preparing for a party to celebrate their big move to Atlanta.
The whole family going to Atlanta, everybody?
Yes.
But according to Robert, the couple's daughters had a birthday party to attend as well.
I went to pick up the girls to bring them to the party because Kenya still had some running around to do before the party.
Robert says once the party preparation was over, he walked to the corner barbershop to get his hair cut. He returned an hour later, and that's when he found Kenya and called 911. To detectives, Robert seems to be telling the truth, and his story checks out with both Kenya's friends and the employees at the corner barbershop.
There was a very solid alibi. The barber said that he cut Robert's hair, nothing of note about Robert.
I felt bad for him. I thought this poor guy came in and found his wife dead on the floor.
With Robert eliminated as a suspect, detectives wonder what happened in that fateful hour Kenya was home alone. One possibility is that Kenya was somehow the victim of a robbery gone wrong.
You notice anything missing in the house?
I don't know. I didn't get a chance to look.
Police checked the apartment to see if there was any evidence of a burglary. They found there was no sign of forced entry and nothing appeared to be missing or out of place.
The lack of stolen goods suggests robbery might not be the motive. The same goes for the vicious nature of the attack itself.
This was one of the bloodiest and most horrific crime scenes that people could remember.
It was extremely violent because of the nature of the attack. It seems unusual that some stranger would walk in and just stab someone multiple times.
If the murder is personal, who's responsible? Shocked neighbors describe the Johnsons as a nice, quiet couple beloved by all. What's more, no one reports seeing or hearing anything suspicious that day. With the investigation going nowhere, detectives again turn to Robert in hopes he can identify someone who might want Kenya dead.
They decided to take him down to police headquarters where it would be quieter.
Once down at the station, investigators noticed something they'd overlooked earlier that afternoon at the scene.
What's up with the blood on your shirt?
It's from holding Kenya. It's from holding Kenya.
They noticed that there was blood on his clothing.
But it's not the only blood they see.
There were some small cuts on Robert Johnson's right hand.
And on your hands?
This happened when I punched the rail and the police came.
This officer's gonna tell you what you need to do, all right?
Sure.
Investigators ask him if he'd allow CSIs to take some samples for blood and DNA testing. Robert gladly agrees. As he's removing his clothes, investigators note even more blood.
A crime scene investigation officer noticed a spot of blood in the center of Robert's chest.
Robert gives police his consent to collect a sample of the blood. Detectives send the sample and Robert's bloody clothes to the crime lab for analysis. Robert also volunteers to give police his and Kenya's cell phones.
He was cooperative with them the entire time he was there.
But in order to determine who might want Kenya dead, detectives have to ask some difficult and deeply personal questions.
Now, Robert, neither one of y'all were having an affair.
No.
Robert describes a happy, healthy, and faithful marriage.
Well, help me out. Tell me who done this.
And that's when Robert gives police their first break.
I kind of got an idea.
Robert recounts a frightening ordeal that happened several months earlier when he was home alone with the kids.
Ain't no drugs in here, man. What is y'all doing? There ain't no drugs. You got him. Ain't no drugs.
Just 3 months before the homicide, there was a robbery and a home invasion at the Johnson home. Robert was home.
Two guys with black hooded sweatshirts rushed in the house and they made all the kids get in the closet. They told the kids, if you come out the closet, we're gonna kill you.
Come on, man. Yeah.
Robert says the attackers demanded drugs.
He suspected the perpetrators had reason to believe that Mrs. Johnson's cousin, who lives across the street, might have some of his stash.
Robert tells police that when he explained to the attackers that there were no drugs in the house, one of the men attacked him. And though his injuries weren't fatal, they did leave scars.
There were scratches on his back because the intruders had knives.
Not only are the knives Robert describes similar to the ones used in the attack on Kenya, a police report verifies his account of the assault. Unfortunately, no arrests were ever made.
That crime kind of went by the wayside and went unsolved.
Is it possible that Robert's assailants had returned in search of drugs again?
Someone may have been storing drugs in the house, and that may have been what the intruders were looking for.
I'll give you my card. If you have any questions, you give us a call, okay? No matter how small you think it might be, all right?
They questioned him there for 3 hours before letting him go. It seemed like they were considering him to be a shocked husband who had discovered a horrible crime had been committed against his wife.
But as detectives begin hunting down these mysterious home invaders, evidence will surface that steers them in a different direction and exposes the details of a forbidden relationship, One so tawdry, nobody in the Johnsons' inner circle could have ever seen coming.
Shocking. Still disbelief to this day. Still can't believe what happened.
Police in Niagara Falls are struggling to solve a shocking murder. Kenya Johnson was stabbed nearly 50 times and left for dead in the home she shared with her husband and 2 young daughters.
The crime scene was gruesome.
Who could do this?
Kenya's husband, Robert, has just informed police of a violent home invasion that took place at their apartment 3 months prior to the murder.
Ain't no drug. Ain't no drug. Get the girls, man.
Someone had broken into the house and made the kids get into the closet.
The similarities between this attack and the attack on Kenya are undeniable.
Where 2 robbers came in and tried to look for some drugs and knives.
And based on Robert's statement, they appear to have been carried out by drug dealers targeting the wrong residents.
That's all I heard. Like, there was a cousin of hers that had a stash.
Maybe someone was targeting this home for whatever reason. They tried back in October, and then they thought when Robert leaves to get his hair cut that they've got free reign in the home, and then they're shocked when someone's in there, and that was a Kenya in there.
So tell me about Kenya.
Looking for answers, police track down Kenya's cousin and question him about his involvement with drugs. He denies the allegations and claims to have no knowledge of the identity of the assailants.
Any of that stuff going on in the neighborhood?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I'm hearing every day, and, I don't see anything out of the ordinary.
As for any potential involvement in drugs on Kenya's part, friends and family are skeptical.
To think that this could have been done to her by a drug dealer, it just didn't match. Kenya didn't have those kinds of enemies. She was not ever involved in a lifestyle of drugs.
Investigators are having a hard time connecting the dots. But if drug dealers aren't to blame, who is?
Nobody goes and kills somebody that they don't know and stab them that many times. And the knife blades and the neck thing and all that, this was personal.
Detectives dig deeper into Kenya's personal life, hoping to find something, anything that will help unravel this mystery. They reach out to Kenya's older sister, Africa.
Can you describe your relationship with your sister?
We were close.
She knew Kenya like no other.
Kenya would, tell me everything. I mean, everything. I talked to her every single day on the phone, 2, 3, 4 times a day.
And as Africa recalls some of those conversations, a new person of interest begins to emerge. A former boyfriend named Letario Humphrey. According to Africa, much like many of Kenya's previous suitors, Letario was a bit rough around the edges.
Did Kenya like street guys?
Kind of like street guys, yeah. Bad boys.
Letario, he was like a street guy as well.
While dating Kenya back in 2002, Letario was arrested and sent to prison for drugs.
Their relationship kind of fizzled off after he went to jail.
Even though Kenya had been with Robert ever since, she kept Letario in her heart. And when he was released from prison 5 months prior, in September 2008, Kenya paid Letario a visit.
She said they had went out to lunch a few times, her and Letario.
But were Kenya and Letario having more than just lunch? According to Africa, that was the rumor, at least among Kenya's girlfriends.
And it wasn't shocking because I knew that Letario still had feelings for her, Kenya.
However, Kenya's sister isn't so sure these rumors are true.
Well, I mean, her friends used to play around about them having a relationship.
He was kind of like her confidant. She said, Africa, he's just somebody that listens to me and we talk to each other. She never, ever said to me that they started sleeping together again, but is it possible? Yes.
For investigators, Africa's statement triggers a new theory. Is it possible that Kenya cheated on Robert with Letario, only to put the brakes on the affair once it became clear that she and Robert would soon be moving to Atlanta? And did Letario decide that if he couldn't have Kenya, nobody could? Detectives track down Letario Humphrey and bring him in for questioning.
Did you sleep with her? I mean, she came over a couple times. Did you sleep with her? Yes, I slept with her.
He was freed from prison on September 10th, 2008, and told the police that very soon after that, he resumed his relationship with Kenya Johnson.
He was there for her, talked to her. He just made her happy.
Detectives pressed Letario about Kenya's murder, but Letario's adamant he had nothing to do with his lover's brutal death.
So let me tell you this, you had nothing to do with that, is that what you're saying?
I didn't have nothing to do with it, man. That's crazy if you think I did. I loved her.
Given Letario's lengthy criminal history, detectives are skeptical.
He had served prison time. He had several drug convictions. He was recently released from prison.
But without any hard evidence, investigators have no choice but to release him and turn back to Kenya's sister Africa for more intel on Letario, who makes another startling revelation.
Robert had access to Kenya's phone, and she did tell me a while back that he found some text messages.
Text messages that demonstrated just how close Kenya and Letario still were. Kenya then informed Robert that she and the kids wouldn't be making the move to Atlanta with him, and that the going-away party she was planning was only for him.
She was not going. She was staying here in the city.
It would be much easier for her to break away from him once he was out of the picture or out of the city.
Investigators are floored. By all accounts, Kenya and Robert seemed like they had the perfect marriage. But Africa informs them that the marriage was broken long before Letario came back into the picture.
Kenya and Robert's relationship, I think it started to go bad before Letario came home from jail. They just were having problems in their relationship.
In fact, Kenya had secretly complained to her for years that she was unhappy with Robert and that they were no longer intimate.
No, he was even sleeping in his bedroom.
Kenya had told Robert, I don't think this is gonna work. I just don't want to be with you anymore.
An alleged affair, a rocky marriage, plans for a separation. Africa's statement is a stark contrast to the picture Robert Johnson described to police. Investigators can't help but wonder, what other information is Robert Johnson hiding? But in an effort to learn the whole truth, detectives will unearth more lies and make another shocking discovery. Kenya wasn't the only one hiding a secret love affair.
We didn't know who she was, we didn't know anything about her, we just knew that it was another woman.
It's now been more than 48 hours since 32-year-old Kenya Johnson was found brutally stabbed to death in her kitchen. On the surface, it seems Kenya and her husband Robert were the perfect couple. But new information suggests the marriage was in trouble, and Kenya was having an affair with an old flame.
Kenya was reportedly having an affair with a man named Letario Humphrey, who was a former boyfriend of hers.
Not only was Kenya allegedly having an affair, but contrary to what Robert originally told police, her husband seemed to know all about it. Detectives now believe this knowledge might just be a motive for murder.
The homicide may have resulted in part from Robert's jealousy over Kenya's relationship with Letario Humphrey.
There's just one problem with that theory: Robert's airtight alibi.
There was a barber shop near the Jordan Gardens apartment, and the barber, Fred Gilmer, said that Robert Johnson arrived in his barber shop to get his hair cut.
We need to find out this number, this 555-1969. It shows up a lot on his records.
Detectives decide to take a look at Robert's cell phone, which he gave police on the night of the murder.
You want to get the phone?
At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary. But as investigators pour through the records, something jumps out. On the morning of the murder, Robert was communicating with somebody listed as my wifey, but it wasn't Kenya's number.
Robert was having contact via text message and phone call with the other woman.
I was like really shocked, like, oh my God.
Who was this woman, and why was Robert referring to her as his wifey? A search of records indicates the phone number belongs to a woman named Lakeisha Davis. And when detectives learn Lakeisha is working at a fast food restaurant in nearby Buffalo...
Lakeisha? Hey, what if I can talk to you just a minute? I'm Investigator Davis, Investigator Clemens. Have a seat right over here.
Okay. They decide to drop in for a surprise visit. Detectives ask Lakeisha how she knows Robert. What she tells them is jaw-dropping.
Do you know Robert Johnson?
Of course, he's my fiance.
We found out that Robert had a whole fiance. He was engaged to somebody else. He brought her a ring and everything.
We found out Robert was, I guess, seeing another girl. I was shocked. I thought they loved each other, that Kenya and Robert had a loving relationship.
While it's certainly shocking, news of Robert's engagement to Lakeisha Davis seems to undermine the theory that Robert murdered Kenya in a fit of jealousy.
If you find out your spouse is having an affair, but you're having one also, I think that cuts against any rage motive.
But what about Robert's new fiancée, Lakeisha Davis? Could she have found out about Kenya and murdered her in order to get rid of the competition?
You see love turn into murder. The people who do this have a very unusual way of showing love. They try to get the person all to themselves. They don't want to share them with anybody else. And things turn violent very easily.
But Lakeisha Davis has an airtight alibi as well.
Where were you on Saturday, the 17th?
Saturday the 17th. Actually, I was here working because I work the weekends.
And not long after confirming Lakeisha's alibi, police receive a forensic report from their CSI team.
The police officers found blood in a number of different locations in the apartment. One of them was on the wall of a staircase.
In addition to the staircase, CSIs have also discovered additional blood evidence in a downstairs washroom.
What they found was when they tested for DNA inside the sink trap in the wash basin, they found a Kenya Johnson's DNA.
The CSI team also recovered one more murder weapon.
They found another bloody knife that was bent inside a kitchen drawer of the apartment.
The additional murder weapon and the new blood evidence in the sink suggests someone tried to clean up the crime scene. But the most critical evidence from the CSI report is the DNA test from the blood sample taken from Robert's chest.
And it matched to Kenya's blood.
Robert initially told police that it was his blood from a scrape he sustained moving furniture. If he was innocent of Kenya's murder, why would he lie? To answer that question, detectives bring Robert in for another interview.
Tell me the truth. What happened to Kenya? What you mean tell you the truth? I've been telling you the truth.
They said they wanted to ask him some more questions. And in the course of a 2-hour interview, they ended up basically accusing him of killing his wife.
It's on you. We got her DNA off you.
Robert sticks to his original story, that he was at the barbershop at the time of the crime. Though there are eyewitness accounts corroborating that statement, detectives know physical evidence doesn't lie. They begin grilling Robert about the knife CSIs have recovered from the drawer.
Why would the killer put the knife in the drawer?
I don't know.
They wanted to know why a burglar, if that's who killed Kenya Johnson, would put the murder weapon back in a drawer. Johnson replied, I don't know. A dumb one?
Enough of this. Robert Johnson, you're under arrest for the murder of Kenya Johnson. Stand up.
It's not the answer investigators are looking for. So on February 17th, nearly a month after investigators encountered a tearful Robert Johnson, cradling the blood-soaked body of his slain wife, he is officially charged with murder. Kenya's friends and family are blown away.
Everything is running through my head. Everything is like, why? How come? Why would he do this to her?
I'm shocked. It was a disturbing, confusing time. He's still the husband of my niece. And in that moment, you want to believe that there's no way he could have done this.
But as the tawdry details of this case emerge, the blood evidence, the affairs, that shock turns to rage.
I'm literally thinking about her, Kenya, in that moment, and saying to myself, it's going to be okay. Justice, we're going to get justice for you.
But getting justice for Kenya won't be easy. And when the case goes to trial, the defense will play a trump card that will rock the courtroom and beg the question, is the wrong man on trial for Kenya Johnson's murder? Niagara Falls, New York is described as a lover's paradise. But on January 17th, 2009, it became the scene to one of a gruesome crime. Kenya Johnson, wife and mother of 2 beautiful daughters, was stabbed 49 times and nearly decapitated in the kitchen of her apartment.
It was shocking. I mean, you lose people in your life every day, but never would I thought that it would be like this.
After a lengthy investigation, police have charged Kenya's husband, Robert, with the murder. But as the case heads to trial, Robert remains adamant that detectives have charged the wrong man with murder.
He said, I didn't do this to her, Africa. I promise you I didn't. I said, well, Robert, I must be honest with you. I believe you did it. I do. And justice will prevail.
On September 22, 2009, opening arguments begin. Prosecutors start by laying out their theory about what happened. They assert that even though Robert was carrying on an illicit affair of his own, when he discovered his wife was cheating on him and that she no longer planned to join him in Atlanta, he snapped.
What you mean you can't go to Atlanta?
I'm tired.
You tired of what? Cheating on me?
Cheating on you?
Yeah. How long you been sleeping with her?
What are you talking about?
She may have said, I am cheating on you and I don't want to be with you, or said something to Bruce's ego and he lost it.
Prosecutors claim that Robert grabbed a set of knives and began viciously stabbing Kenya over and over, 49 times in all, leaving several broken blades in her body.
There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of rage.
Robert Johnson wanted, in effect, revenge for his wife cheating on him and for, in his opinion, not really loving him all these years.
According to prosecutors, once Robert realized Kenya was dead, he headed to the basement and attempted to wash away the blood. While doing so, Robert realized he needed an alibi, so he changed clothes and made a mad dash to the corner barbershop.
It's crazy. You can't possibly be in your right mind to murder someone, clean yourself up, leave the house, leave the person there, and go get a haircut.
After his haircut, Robert returned home, called 911, and then cradled his wife's body in his arms until police and EMTs arrived.
Prosecutor Lisa Berry told the jury he had to come up with an alibi, and he had to come up with one in a hurry.
I believe wholeheartedly that he's done this. It was clear to us more then, as she laid it out to us, exactly kind of what took place.
When it's his turn, Robert's defense attorney, Michael McNellis, argues that the real guilty party is the Niagara Falls police, who in their rush to judgment arrested an innocent man.
The police honed in on Robert Johnson right off the bat and never looked anywhere else.
McNellis also argues that Robert's barbershop alibi is indeed airtight, and that his client never had the opportunity to kill his wife. As proof, they offer the testimony of the barber, Fred Gilmer.
Gilmer said that Johnson arrived in his barbershop and waited 15 minutes and then had about 20 minutes in the chair for the haircut.
The mathematics of the time doesn't comport with Robert being the killer.
Prosecutors counter by asserting the walk from the Johnson residence to the barbershop doesn't take nearly as long as the defense suggests.
The barbershop is only 2 or 3 blocks from the apartment where the Johnsons lived.
But according to prosecutors, more important than a timeline is the fact that Kenya's blood and DNA was found on Robert's clothes and body, as well as in the basement sink.
By the time all the evidence came out, there was no way. Everyone believed that he did it.
Defense attorney McNellis counters that the DNA on Robert's chest and clothes were transferred when he was tearfully cradling his wife's blood-soaked body. He also provides a possible explanation for the evidence found in the downstairs sink basin.
There was the washing machine that was washing right into that sink basin. So as people's clothes are washed, there's traces of DNA that can spill into that sink trap.
That's when defense attorney McNellis drops a forensic bombshell and introduces evidence he feels proves his client's innocence: the socks Robert was wearing the day of the crime.
Among the items of clothing the police took from Robert Johnson was his socks. Those socks were later tested for DNA, and they found Kenya Johnson's DNA and Robert Johnson's DNA, and the DNA of a third person whom they were unable to identify.
There is a third DNA profile that, to me, was picked up when Robert's walking through the blood.
McNellis contends that the unknown DNA belongs to the real killer, one of the intruders who first attacked Robert months earlier. It's an argument that seems to plant the seed of reasonable doubt.
They did try to paint the picture there could have been a third person there. You want to give everybody the benefit of a doubt.
On October 5th, 2009, both sides rest their case. 3 hours later, the jury announces they've reached a verdict.
Robert had no emotion. He just sat there.
I really believe that Robert's going to get his just due in the end.
The 4 men and 8 women find Robert Johnson guilty of first-degree murder.
It was like this sigh of relief came over me. He's gonna go to jail now. He's gonna get, what he deserves.
We may not ever have a Kenya with us again, but at least we have justice for her murder.
The judge gives Robert a sentence of 25 years to life. But before Kenya's family can feel even an ounce of victory, the case is rocked by another bombshell. One that suggests the guilty verdict just handed down is far from a sure thing. The roller coaster trial of Robert Johnson for the murder of his wife Kenya has just ended with a guilty verdict and a sentence of 25 years to life.
So we're standing there and we're listening, and when we hear that verdict come back as guilty, part of you wants to rejoice because he is found guilty. Justice is being served.
But the celebration is short-lived. Not long after the verdict is read, Robert's defense attorney, Michael McNellis, files an appeal, claiming he now has proof that his client is innocent.
McNellis said that he had an affidavit from a teenager named Robert Thousand, who had been an inmate in the Niagara County Jail. Thousand wrote in his affidavit that another inmate by the name of Thomas Pryor had confessed to killing a Kenya Johnson.
Moreover, Thomas Pryor is revealed to have been one of the suspects initially investigated in the home invasion that occurred at the Johnson residence 3 months prior to the murder.
I asked the judge basically to throw out the verdict, reopen the case and start all over.
Kenya's family is in utter disbelief.
I don't know really how to respond, and so I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
On February 17, 2010, the judge calls a special hearing to determine if Robert Thousand is a credible witness.
He took the stand and verified everything that he said in the letter. He maintained all the way through that Thomas Pryor's words were that Thomas Pryor went in and committed the crime.
But when pressed, Robert Thousand is unable to provide any additional details about Thomas Pryor or the murder of Kenya Johnson. In short, the judge isn't buying it.
The judge didn't believe that Robert Thousand's information was credible. That was his assessment.
The judge said both his body language and his intonation gave him away as a liar.
On May 22, 2010, the court upholds Robert Johnson's guilty verdict and his sentence of 25 years to life. For Kenya's family, it's a bittersweet victory.
My friend's gone. Africa's sister's gone. Kofi's sister's gone.
And once the allegations of illicit engagements and extramarital affairs are stripped away, one simple tragedy remains. A single vicious attack carried out in a fit of rage robbed 2 young girls of both their parents.
Children are probably hurt the most because now they don't have their mother or their father.
It's terrible. And it doesn't matter how, it could be 10 years from now and it'll be terrible. What can you do? Nothing. Nothing at all.